Candace Owens continues to divide conservatives over her claims about Charlie Kirk's assassination.
She's put forth the theory that the suspected shooter, Tyler Robinson, didn't act alone. And she's also made various claims about Kirk's widow, Erica, and his Turning Point USA organization. Conservative commentator Matt Walsh pleaded with Owens to stop spreading her theories and going after Erica Kirk. Take a look.
What I am asking everybody, including Candace, is to please leave this woman alone. Let her grieve. Let her pick up the pieces of her shattered life in whatever way she sees fit. She deserves that grace. And we owe it to her, not because of any specific debt, not because we have no right to question her. Of course, we do have the right. But we have a moral obligation as children of our Heavenly Father to be charitable and kind towards suffering widows, especially the widow of a man that all of us on the right say that we respected and admired.
Turning Point USA was set to host a live stream event where the organization would respond to some of the claims Owens has made, but that live stream was abruptly postponed.
This does come after Erica Kirk, in a CBS town hall interview, told Candace Owens to stop spreading her theories, her ridiculous theories. Owens had previously suggested Erica was one of the only people who could get her to stop. Now it appears the two could be on their way toward making amends with one another. We'll see about that. On Sunday evening, Erica Kirk posted this on X. Candace Owens and I are meeting for a private in-person discussion on Monday, December 15th. Candace and I have agreed that public discussions, live streams, and tweets are on hold until after this meeting. I look forward to a productive conversation. Thank you. And Owens confirmed that the meeting was happening, saying, I am very much looking forward to this discussion.
Now, Erica Kirk also spoke on the violent rhetoric that has ensued in the wake of her husband's death. Here she was in the town hall interview with CBS editor-in-chief Barry Weiss.
Do you think our political leaders have a responsibility to turn the temperature down right now?
Well, I think everyone has a responsibility to do that, and I'm doing my part. I'm not in control of other people.
Well, again, if Erica Kirk thinks meeting with Candace Owens is the best way to handle this, then I agree with everything Matt Walsh said. She can do whatever way she wants to handle this. That she deserves support from people who love and trust and want her to succeed and are backing her. Candace Owens is certainly not one of those people, but this might be the best way to address her. I'm certainly for dialogue and discussion. I'm not for canceling or censoring or shutting down anything. I think Candace is a completely unreasonable person, untethered from the rules or any standards of personal behavior or facts whatsoever. So I don't know that trying to convince her that what she's saying is not true and there's no evidence behind it, and she can't offer a shred of proof that that Tyler Robinson had other people involved. Those people, the Turning Point was involved somehow, maybe that Israel was involved somehow, maybe that the vast conflagration of global forces that are conspired against Candace Owens are somehow involved. It's all idiocy. But I wish Erica the best as she tries to deal with this completely unreasonable harpy.
Well, I think the fact of the matter is that Candace Owens has millions of people that watch her on a daily basis. Mm-hmm. And it's important to understand that while some people might be hate watching, there are a lot of people who might want answers. Some of that audience has to bleed and blend to be the same audience of Turning Point USA just by sheer the interest levels, right, and the way that YouTube works. So I'm assuming that a lot of the people really would like to figure out if there are any there. And I don't think that I think that Candace is wildly off the deep end most times. In this instance, if she wants to have a dialogue with somebody that she was referring to as her friend and really searching for answers in a way that you don't agree with, or a lot of people don't agree with, I think she's well within her rights, especially knowing that she's going after and trying to target conversation with an organization that made their like stake in the ground about more conversation, right? That's what the Charlie Kirk messaging was. That's what Erica Kirk, as somebody who's taking over his position. Now, there's a whole other layer to this of somebody who is a grieving widow and mom. And even when she took the role to take on Charlie Kirk's role, it was a lot to mothers and anybody looking at it and saying, wow, this is noble for you to do, sure. But at the same time, there's children and other people that need to be looked after in a way that they just lost their dad. So it's not like as much help as you can have, it doesn't take away having your mother present to help you figure out that incredibly tough time. And we've been seeing her so much and so often that it comes with some open door criticism like it would for Charlie Kirk as a leader who's been outspoken. But at the same time, the moral compass that Matt was talking about by having some grace and being able to be guided by somebody that you know, maybe you don't agree with the way she's grieving. But some people get busy when they grieve. Some people try to figure out how to
100%.
Yeah, some people try to figure out how to not think about it 24/7.
Yeah, the people are saying, I can't believe she... Well, and those people
there's a real conversation
have been
about that
aligned with
happening.
Candace broadly, saying that Erica had to be in on it or it doesn't care or it says something weird about it because she's not grieving the way that they would expect her to grieve. I'm sorry, if you've not been through something like this, you don't know. And even if you have, everyone is different.
Right.
She is she is dealing with this by dedicating herself to fostering and building Charlie's legacy, Turning Point, to promoting conservative ideas. That is how she is choosing to handle this, and that is a perfectly valid choice. It doesn't mean she doesn't. Queen Victoria wore black for the rest of her life. That's how Queen Victoria handled the death of her husband. This is how Erica's handling it. Different people are different. That is absolutely fine. Candace is a vindictive ex-Turning Point person she has a grievance with the organization that she was not a part of it anymore is what I suspect, and she is using this as a cover conflict. It's always got to be about her, and I know she has people who watch her, millions of people, and I don't understand. I would love someone to explain it to me how anyone can take her seriously after this behavior, which I just find obnoxious and offensive.
So a lot of people do throw themselves into work when they lose someone they love. That's a fact. So I'm pretty much tabled that conversation for people that want to perpetuate it online. But I do think at the same time, the fact that she's going to sit down and talk to Candace Owens is probably a more ideal situation than Candace Owens hopping on that live stream and debating what could turn into an argument over point by point with some other leader of the organization. She said she had some semblance of a relationship with Erica Kirk. Candace Owens said Erica Kirk is the only one who can make her stop. So the fact that that's happening in private and then they can share separately
I predict
might actually come to a
her
solution.
Stop because
Who
you can't
continue?
stop her,
I mean, at some point, if they come out with similar stories about what was discussed, unless they're going to publicly argue after this, then there has to be some questions answered and people should be able to move on. And if Candace Owens then chooses to still kind of retaliate on behalf of Turning Points USA to a grieving widow and carry on, well, then that's hopefully the audience is no longer into continuing to perpetuate this and supporting that. Because we should just get answers are valid for an organization like Turning Point because they searched answers and that's what they said that they did. So Candace Owens can do the same thing that the organization required of other people, but they need to display the answers and be in unison. If they're not in unison, that's a whole other chaotic problem. But if they are, then we have to drop it, or Candace should have some eye-opening data that she shares with Erica that really makes them both come forward with some compelling information.
Right.
But
I don't think
far-fetched.
Candace can be convinced of anything rational, but maybe her viewers or supporters can be persuaded that she is not operating in good faith and she's not interested in the truth. But she is going. I just don't even know how you debate someone like her, or have a conversation with someone like her, because she rejects like the evidence of one's own eyes and ears. She disagrees about what color the sky is. So it's not. I don't see how it can possibly. Or
maybe she's holding the secret information that she has that connects all these dots for the one conversation.
Oh yeah.
With Erica Kirk. And then
we
shall see. It's happening today. So tomorrow, hopefully we have some details and we can discuss.
I think tomorrow she'll be as worked up about some new theory as ever, but we shall see.
The BBC appears to be the latest media target of President Trump. On Monday, the president filed a defamation lawsuit for $10 billion against the British broadcaster, accusing them of producing a, quote, false, defamatory, deceptive, disparaging, inflammatory, and malicious depiction of President Trump. in a documentary that aired just 1 week before the 2024 election.
Similarly to the CBS 60 Minutes lawsuit, the president takes issue with editing choices of the production team. The president alleges that the documentary made it appear that he explicitly urged his supporters to attack the U.S. Capitol building during his January 6, 2021 speech at the Ellipse. He argues that he never said the specific sequence of words that can be heard in the documentary and called it, quote, a brazen attempt to interfere and influence the election's outcome to President Trump's detriment. He even suggested in the Oval Office that the outlet used AI to put words in his mouth. Take a listen.
They put words in my mouth. They had me saying things that I never said coming out. I guess they used AI or something. So we'll be bringing that lawsuit. A lot of people are asking, when are you bringing that lawsuit? Even the media can't believe that one. They actually put terrible words in my mouth having to do with January 6th that I didn't say. They actually have me speaking with words that I never said. And they got caught because I believe somebody at BBC said, this is so bad, it has to be reported. That's called fake news.
Now, while the suit is new, the complaint isn't. BBC Chair Samir Shah recently apologized for the, quote, error in judgment, and both the Director General and the head of news resigned over the documentary. The BBC also apologized and promised not to air the documentary again. But despite the moves by the BBC to make it right, Trump filed the suit anyway, and his allies seem to be behind him. Conservative influencer Nick Sorter, writing on X, bankrupt that fake foreign news rag 47, an example must be set. But some in the British media are pushing back, saying the BBC has done the right thing and the lawsuit is frivolous. Take a look.
The BBC made a mistake. They have apologized. This is completely disproportionate. It did not affect him in any meaningful way. It wasn't even broadcast in America. The defense is pathetic that people could have got a VPN or whatever and seen it. It didn't stand in his way to go forward as president in any way. And it's like when someone has a go at your family, you can say what you want about them. You don't want some authoritarian from overseas having a go at our...
But if somebody else...
Let
Brian come in.
Look at the bilge that comes out of Fox News. But if some Brit was trying to shut it down, that would be equally unacceptable.
Well, that is a strong remark. Look, it was absolutely wrong what they did. It was a glaring mistake. Just as a refresher, it was edited so that it's made it seem like he said in his speech, we're going to walk down the Capitol. We're going to walk down to the Capitol, and I'll be there with you. And we fight like hell. That's how it looks in the video. In reality, in the actual speech, he said, we're going to walk down to the Capitol, and I'll be there with you. And then 54 minutes later, he said, and we fight like hell. So by putting those together, it made it sound like we're going to the Capitol and we're going to fight, when the fight part was a rhetorical thing that came an hour later. It was not in connection to the call to walk to the Capitol. That's an important difference. For sure. And the editing is too seamless. Like, it's not like there's a clock at the bottom and it says what time this was said, and then it flashes in the next part what time. It looks like it's the same sentence. So they screwed it up massively. There's no question about that. The question is, and the skepticism of the lawsuit comes in, the harm. Because to prove defamation, it can't just be somebody said something wrong about you. It has to be, and this cost you X amount of dollars, or we're going to quantify it in some way. The idea that this was seen by enough people in America to harm his electoral chances is where I think it starts to become a stretch. But there's no question that it was a serious transgression, in my view.
For sure. 2 people lost their jobs, and there was a public apology. I think understanding journalism specifically, one of the things that you learn is when you're editing video journalism, you have to put a big, distinct transition to make sure that people know they're getting from one comment to the next. Otherwise, you are convincing viewers, if you do like some quick blur that looks like it's not really an edit, like you see on podcasts sometimes, that it was one sentence, because people who turn away might think they said that in a
It was
thought.
not AI,
so
though.
It was not AI, yes.
Things Trump said, just stitched together to make it look like it was not AI. And people are starting to use AI videos in political ads, things of that nature. Now, I don't think many people are being fooled by it so far, because there's usually a disclaimer saying this is AI, making like Kamala Harris say something she didn't say, or whoever. Gavin Newsom, funny enough, has used it to make fun of Trump. He's put out videos making fun of Trump that are AI, but of course he signed a bill to prohibit those in California, and the court struck it down. Because it's free speech, it's First Amendment.
My bigger thought was kind of what we just saw in the clip that we just played, is that the BBC is a significant broadcaster in Europe. And so even though there is access to the channel in the US, it's not like on the same page as some of our top media news sites, and it didn't even air over here. And so the president's saying that it aired around the election and caused major damage to his campaign in any way, like he would have won in some extreme, like 90% of the vote. It's like over exaggerated. Right. They apologized. People got fired. They apologized back in November. And, this is in the same line of that $15 billion lawsuit that he had against the New York Times that completely got pushed away because it had no merit. People weren't making sense. So, and this is, again, tagging on to all the different people that he sued, including Rupert Murdoch and the Wall Street Journal, because they said that he gave Jeffrey Epstein a birthday card, which it looks very clearly like he did, and they have enough sources as the Wall Street Journal to report. And so it's just like this constant attack on reporters and media. And when people make mistakes and people get fired and own up to it, that should be acceptable, right? There's no path in journalism where you never make a mistake. And whoever called for that mistake. But the buck stopped with the two people that are the head of the company, the Greenlight Documentaries. They both got let go. So what else is he looking for?
Okay, well, you can make an oopsie and still get sued over it. I mean,
I understand.
Consider Rolling Stone magazine when they put out that fake story years ago that I was involved in about gang sexual assaults at the University of Virginia that was fake. They got sued by the dean of students, by the fraternity in its individual capacity and its individual members. It was because it was a really big oopsie on their part, and they got sued.
But the lawsuit is saying that it tried to sway the election results in some way, basically.
Not that it had that effect.
Yeah, that it had that, and that's not, to me, that's not clear. And honestly, I'm not a lawyer, but it's not clear here.
I agree with you there, but it can't.
So the
oopsie, get sued.
Yeah, you can get sued. I'm not saying. I'm just saying he's wasting, again, more time and resources on stuff when you just pointed out in the last segment that a lot of people have Trump fatigue because he's spending time thinking about everyone else, saying disparaging things about an actor that passed away, finding time to sue all these networks, New York Times, BBC, but not actually handling things at home. And this is not to circle back to say, oh, look at Trump's approval rating. This is to actually be clear that people that put you in position, even the 30 people that said 30% said you could do no wrong with things that you say verbally, are still not feeling comfortable this holiday season because they can't pay a bill. And you're sitting here suing the BBC, which is a British broadcaster. Pay attention to America. I know, but America First means to do your frivolous lawsuits on your own time. America First would mean to focus on America right now, not on British broadcasters that you think disparage you, even though you still won. Like, what are we talking about?
Citizen Donald is fighting for his rights, just like any American.
You know right from wrong, Robbie. I'm not accepting that.
CNN host Abby Phillips and New York Post correspondent Lydia Moynihan clashed during a panel discussion about immigration and culture. The two were discussing President Trump's recent comments at a rally last week in Pennsylvania. He admitted he used a certain term during a private meeting with lawmakers in 2018. Let's listen.
Why is it we only take people from hole countries, right? Why can't we have some people from Norway, Sweden, just a few? Let us have a few. From Denmark, do you mind sending us a few people? Send us some nice people, do you mind? But we always take people from Somalia, places that are a disaster, right? Filthy, dirty, disgusting, ridden with crime.
Moynihan and Phillip then got into a tense exchange during CNN's Saturday morning Table for Five. Let's watch.
I think we should absolutely select the best of the best. It should be an individual choice. But I think we can also acknowledge there are certain cultures that are not compatible with America.
Which ones?
Well, if we look at Europe, actually, there was a lawyer this week who argued that an Afghan immigrant who raped a woman shouldn't be charged or shouldn't have a penalty because his culture said that women weren't free and equal. We're seeing 77% of rapes in France are from migrants. So there is a real question that people on the right have about certain cultures.
What are the cultures?
Moynihan argued that people from cultures that are okay with certain practices, like, quote, female genital mutilation, shouldn't be let into the country. Phillips then asked Moynihan about the women who would like to flee that sort of thing. Here's more of their exchange.
If you were Somalian, you're a woman and you're fleeing.
Who were fleeing.
You're actually trying to leave because
you. The FBI is now arresting people for bringing that with them.
If you want to leave another country, Afghanistan, because you want to be able to read, the United States says you are not allowed in because culturally you're not compatible with this country. How does that make sense?
Well, I mean, look, my grandparents came from Germany and Poland to escape the Holocaust. And before they got here, the whole USS St. Louis was turned away because Jewish culture was determined at that moment as non-compatible.
Yeah, it's interesting discussion. This is obviously in reaction partly to the Minnesota welfare fraud abuse scandal, which was disproportionately perpetrated by Somalians. I find myself getting annoyed by people on both sides of this conversation, basically based on who I heard last, because when I hear someone like Abby Phillip trying to say that there's no differences between culture, just kind of being a little bit the fool here. Like, what they're saying is people who come from war-torn Middle Eastern countries, Islamic fundamentalist countries, it's religious extremism. Islamic religious extremism is what Lydia is saying is incompatible with the West, and that's not a racist view or what. That's a view of an ideology that I wouldn't want to export a lot of like Christian nationalists either. It's not even religion specific or Hindu radicals or whatever religion. I don't want religious extremism. That's what she's saying. So it's not that crazy to me. But then again, it is also true that we can't, especially when they're here, we can't say, oh, well, we don't like you because we don't like Somalians and you're Somalian, so we got to send you away. We can vet them more properly before they come in. And yes, we do have to be a little selective about which country, because we got to make, I think broad categorization makes most sense in immigration policy when you're considering we want more of these people, less of these people. The reason we don't have tons of people coming in from Denmark is that Denmark's a perfectly nice place to live. So all of Denmark doesn't want to come to here. Somalia is more of a failed state and people want to leave it and come here.
I mean, I just think just starting from the top, going by what the president said, he named Sweden, Denmark, and Norway.
Yeah.
And I think when you
those
say
are
those
high-income countries.
Okay, but when you name those places and say it, you know that the understanding is that we are assuming a lot of the people there are not people of color. And so when you opposite to that name Somalia and say, oh, use the same word that he used for Haiti, I believe, calling it S-hole, and then that's where people of color live. And it's like, okay, we don't govern our laws.
Low GDP.
But we don't govern our laws based on, so like Lydia's example that, you know, Afghan people may consider rape differently than we do in the U.S. or whatever she said, or they do in Europe, and so lawyers arguing that an Afghan person they're representing and be charged differently. That's irrelevant in the U.S. We consider it how we consider it. So if you migrated here and you do anything egregious like that, first of all, you're getting deported, and second of all, you're going to jail. If you know, like either way, you're getting prosecuted properly through our system.
Check it,
but we don't. I know, but we don't also assume that everybody that's coming from Afghanistan wants to be under that mindset, but also is operating under anything that they've learned in the past. Sometimes when people are fleeing dire situations, like migrants that I've interviewed that have come here from Venezuela, it's really life or death for them. Even when you look at the numbers of why migrants that flee dire situations commit less crimes based on like per capita, it's because they literally know that they can get thrown out of the country. They know they can go to jail.
And I think we should take as many Venezuelans as we possibly can, which is why I break from the right. There are several different arguments being made against immigration. I think this if there's an actual cultural difference and there's actually higher crime rates, that is a good reason to reject immigrants of that ideology or from that region. That doesn't apply to the Venezuelans, who they're in America. It's part of America. It's part of the American continent. They don't have contradictory values. They're fleeing socialism. We are against socialism. They're Christian. They want to work. I'm for that category of immigration.
And how do you respond to, I mean, I'm not saying that you're siding with Lydia, but when you look at the table conversation, there was a man sitting on the panel that specifically said, yeah, this was the same conversation they had about Jewish people back in the day. They didn't want us here. You are Italian, right? This is the same conversation that they tried to associate all Italians with crime when they didn't want them coming here. But guess what? There are plenty of Italians living in America whose family migrated here that have been great stand-up citizens that have contributed to our society. So just like in the same ways that we shouldn't allow that conversation to stand historically, we shouldn't then start targeting people that shouldn't come because their culture or what you perceive as their culture and how they live by it or don't should be the reasons why they get into America. When most people that come here, even the Somali community, if we're sticking to that recent story, are not abusing our system. It's a small pocket of people in Minnesota. I think when we crunched the numbers, it was like less than 1% of the Somali people that have migrated here have committed a crime. And when you look at how many people during the pandemic committed financial fraud crimes that were American, it's egregiously higher of our own people that have abused the system because they saw an opportunity to do so. So I also think that it's not the right time to tie those two stories together and to make it a time to target that community, as I've been saying, but also then to widen it and to look at what happened in the National Guard incident, like we talked about. That was somebody from Afghanistan that helped the U.S. in many ways fought alongside the U.S. to right the wrongs and then maybe went crazy or whatever. We're still looking into that case. But he did something here. So now we look at all Afghanistan people migrating here and say, oh, bad people. And it's like, that's not always the case. He did everything across the board that would allow somebody to get.
Look, I hear you. And I'm pro-immigration for the most part. But I think the difference people on the right will say between, okay, yes, Jewish immigrants, we want them all. Italian immigrants, Irish immigrants, Chinese, Taiwanese, Indians who are going to work hard. The difference between all of them and the Somalians is
it's a black country.
Radical
That
Islam.
is the difference.
Radical Islam.
That's the difference.
I think it's
that is
not,
the wildest thing
not
to not
skin.
say.
Not
That is the
skin.
wildest thing to not admit and acknowledge that the president has a history of doing. These are poor countries, and he points out the ones of color, and that's the where he always calls it names. Like even
Well, India is a poor country too, and we're going to take as many. I'm for, and Trump is for, taking as many high-skilled workers from India as possible. So I don't think you can say it's not.
But
a
he's
race
not
thing,
taking
it's
any
a
of the
creed.
poor people that will come here and work hard and do all the laborious jobs that Americans are not taking. Like you're saying, the president is against that, even though he's used migrants in many of his businesses.
We have plenty of Hispanics for that. We don't bring them from across the ocean.
I think that we should not just be targeting random countries.
Okay,
because
but the
president
difference
has
is
some-
the ideology. The difference is radical Islam, which people have a concern about because of attacks of this nature, of what we just saw in Australia, what we saw at the guard shooting, what we see all over the world. The instability in that. It's not all areas of the world are equally unstable right now. The Middle East, North Africa stand out.
I just
right?
think we need to vet people based on actions and not their ancestry. That's not a good vetting tool for immigration here into the U.S. based on actions.
I think when you're here, absolutely, you can't be judged based on the behaviors of someone like you or from your same country. I agree, but our immigration policy does have to be a little. Would you accept that some kind? I mean, we put limits on how much can come from this country and this country.
I think vetting individuals is important, but I think when you look at whole cultures and paint it with a broad stroke brush, that's how we get into like making an entire culture feel isolated from migrating to this country, and I don't think that's the right way to go.
Deputy FBI Director Dan Bongino officially announced he's leaving his position at the Bureau next month, departing after less than 1 year on the job.
In a post on X, Bongino writes, "I will be leaving my position with the FBI in January. I want to thank President Trump, Attorney General Bondi, and Director Patel for the opportunity to serve with purpose. Most importantly, I want to thank you, my fellow Americans, for the privilege of serving you. God bless America and all those who defend her."
Bongino's tenure at the FBI was tumultuous at times, most notably with the reported tension between the Bureau and the Justice Department over the handling of the Jeffrey Epstein files. Before becoming Deputy Director, Bongino had long questioned the official narrative that Epstein took his own life. Multiple outlets reported that Bongino clashed with Attorney General Pam Bondi over the summer before he eventually seemed to change his mind and agree that Epstein did indeed kill himself.
Prior to his appointment to the FBI, Bongino built a large online following through his podcast, where he was a staunch defender of Trump and a critic of the FBI during the Biden administration. Reactions to his announcement have been pouring in, including from President Trump. Trump told reporters on Wednesday, "Dan did a great job. I think he wants to go back to his show." FBI Director Kash Patel gave his own farewell, writing on X, "Dan's the best partner I could have asked for in helping restore this FBI. He brought critical reforms to make the organization more efficient, led the successful summer heat op, served as the people's voice for transparency, and delivered major breakthroughs in long unsolved cases like the pipe bomb investigation." And that's only a small part of the work. He went about every single day delivering for America. He not only completed his mission, he far exceeded it. We'll miss him, but I'm thankful that he accepted the call to serve. Our country is better and safer for it. No more Dan Bongino.
No,
so
I won't be shedding too many tears about that, as you might imagine.
Back to the podcast circuit. I
Yes.
guess that's where he wants to be.
It's also what he's more temperamentally suited for. I don't even mean that in quite a
well,
sneering
it's what
way.
he's decided he's
probably
more
came out.
temperamentally
Yeah.
suited for. Maybe Kash Patel should do the same.
Yeah.
That is a criticism that, frankly, people on the right have made of these two at this point. And you'll remember, Niall, I was very excited about Kash Patel. Actually, he was the Trump administration figure I was kind of most excited about because I had heard him on podcasts talking about all these things he wanted to do with the FBI that I thought were great ideas. What I think we've learned subsequently is the case with both of them is that they're very good at talking about things on television, but that's where their heart is. And Kash Patel, we've been making fun of relentlessly this week for that ill-timed podcast appearance. Katie Miller with the girlfriend talking about their relationship as the Brown University killer still at large, which is now becoming a really terrifying and appalling failure. As with Charlie Kirk's killer, I'm like, well, give it 2 or 3 days and they'll catch him. Luigi Mangione was the same way. It's been a week now, coming up on a week, and they haven't caught him. That's very disturbing. And they have pretty clear footage of the perpetrator. So I'm still fingers crossed that this person will be brought to justice very swiftly. But this is not an FBI that has satisfied conservatives, I think, by any stretch of the imagination, let alone liberals. We're always going to be rather unhappy with these two characters, but they have not endeared themselves to they started from a position of great friendliness with MAGA. They don't enjoy that now.
Right. And I think that your point about the podcasts and all of that underlines a point that often gets derided, which is that expertise does in fact matter. And both Kash Patel and Dan Bongino made their names really with pretty incendiary rhetoric, and then were, as a consequence of the fame that they had accrued from that process, put on the top of a very important bureau. Now, we could have a whole debate about law enforcement and the FBI and all of that, but the point is the jobs that they occupy are obviously very important jobs. The problem in Bongino's case is that there was this real clash between the kind of claims he had made on his podcast, including, for example, about the January the 6th pipe bomber, which he had continually implied was some sort of inside job or there was something nefarious about it. They now have arrested someone in that case. It seems like it's not an inside job at all. There's no evidence of that if it's that person. And so Bongino had to sort of row back from that position. That, I think, is indicative of the broader attitude, and it's why his tenure has been so problematic.
I should note that Thomas Massie has echoed some concerns from whistleblowers he's spoken to about the pipe bomber suspect they have. Again, I'm not generally one to question, I have no doubt the person they've apprehended in the Charlie Kirk case is the killer. I'm not one to generally question that they've got the right person.
I hope you're not going to become the Candace Owens of the January the 6th pipe bomber.
I certainly don't want to do that, but it is, for whatever it's worth, Thomas Massie said he's heard from people in the FBI who are very surprised about this suspect, who knew this person previously, who lived in the same neighborhood, and have doubts about whether or how he could have possibly pulled it off. Who knows?
Yeah.
That's out there.
I mean, I don't want to say that the guy's guilty when he's presumably going to plead his innocence and is going to have his day in court. But I mean, there was you remember the Blaze embarrassed itself terribly by naming a person who they said by gait analysis had seemed 94, 95% certain, and they ultimately had to retract that story. We're not going to identify the person they named here, obviously, but that was indicative of a kind of embarrassing eagerness to declare it an inside job, in my view.
Trump picked a lot of his cabinet positions, a lot of his admin staff from the world of television and entertainment, which he values. That's where he comes from himself. But you're right that it does take not just being good on TV, it takes technical expertise to run a department. It's not all just comms. You can pick the White House press secretary, can come from the realm of television and entertainment, but you need people who don't just go on Fox. And I think even the MAGA faithful is getting a little frustrated with the idea that it's all about the optics and the comms and creating content. I mean, they have total control of the government right now. They have the presidency, they have Congress, they have a Supreme Court that's majority Republican. Now is the time to get things done. And I'm not sure, to deliver on big, bold promises they made about wholesale reform of the FBI, wholesale reform of the deep state and the permanent federal bureaucracy. Are they pulling that off? I don't think the view of the right is that they're pulling that off.
Right.
That Trump is most transformative in ways that are making businesses and other things personally do his bidding or curry favor with him has been the way he has exercised power most aggressively. That's not hugely beneficial to me. I want to use power in a transformational way to make the federal government smaller, not to make everyone else more afraid of what the president might do to you.
Democrats in the House Oversight Committee released more photos from the Epstein files on Friday.
The latest round of photos was released without much context, with the time frame and location of those photos unclear, but they still lit up social media. Now, some of the most talked about images were this one showing President Donald Trump standing with Epstein and one of former President Bill Clinton also posing for a photo with Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell.
House Committee member Robert Garcia gave a statement along with the release of the photos. He says, quote, "It is time to end this White House cover-up and bring justice to the survivors of Jeffrey Epstein and his powerful friends. These disturbing photos raise even more questions about Epstein and his relationships with some of the most powerful men in the world. We will not rest until the American people get the truth. The Department of Justice must release all the files now."
Now, there was one photo in particular that didn't have Epstein in it, but still caught a lot of people's attention. It's this photo of renowned leftist activist and professor Noam Chomsky smiling and laughing with President Trump's former chief strategist, Steve Bannon. Many were surprised by the picture, since the two seemed far more friendly than would be expected, given their political beliefs. Writer Jason Bassler says on X, ideological enemies? Nah, it's all one big club. And the socialist activist group Community Independent Journal wrote on Facebook, "This is Noam Chomsky yucking it up with Steve Bannon. Personally, I find this very disappointing, but nevertheless release these files, all of them, and let the chips fall where they may." So that was Chomsky and Steve Bannon, I believe, not Epstein, not in the photo, but that was at Epstein's residence. Shortly before that or after that, Chomsky had been describing Bannon-style right-wing fascism, blah, blah, blah. But they're hanging out. Bannon looks terrible in this level of Epstein connection. But Chomsky...
Oh, I thought you meant visibly, like actually in the picture. But you're saying like he looks terrible because all his connections that went way past.
He's not a peak male specimen, no.
Okay, but that's not what you were referring to. That's not what you were referring to.
Yeah, I mean, and Chomsky's an old guy. But Chomsky's this beloved, left-wing academic, left socialist thinker, commentator, who was known to have an association with Epstein. This is wild. This is like crazy left-wing person, crazy right-wing person, getting along with Epstein. I don't know.
I think that the House Oversight Committee is just signaling to everybody this is far from over as we go into recess and try to reset in the new year. That there's a lot more to come. I wish that all the files could just be released, because at this point we're just talking about the anticipation of it all. And my biggest thing is there a connection to the money, follow the money. Does the Treasury Department have something that we could maybe point to make sure that we're understanding all the people that had money to actually fund the lifestyle that Epstein was living? How were they connected to him, and whom is implicated in some of these things? But I think this is about like transparency and accountability at this point. Like, why is it's not clear? And even if there's not much that people will gain from releasing everything, or you feel, I know that you said like a lot has been released already, seeing these new pictures is just starting to be frustrating, because it doesn't change anything that we knew, that Trump had known Epstein and been around him, so it's not like the same.
Trump and Clinton
every
ones
time.
are from a long time ago, but the Chomsky-Bannon one was much more recent.
Right. So if there's an implication, because there's no charges attached to these, they just released photos from Epstein's personal estate.
It's not illegal to be best friends with a sexual abuser of underage women. But,
and if there's more there, then let's explore it. And the American public should know. And I think that that's what people are asking for: transparency, accountability. But like I said, no one shown in these photos has been charged. So it's kind of like, stop dangling the thing over the people. There's people like me who started looking at this year and was like, wait, this is not, why
you
are they...
realized it was going to look bad for Trump, then you became super.
No, I really was just looking at...
Yes, you did.
I laughed about it. But now that we're here, I'm like, wait, why did they go for it? When it became a Democratic hoax, I'm like, why is he going so far about trying to keep this contained? It felt a little bit obnoxious and like almost
defense. Because he thinks innocent people will be accused.
No, because they can be redacted in ways that we all understand can happen. Their names can be redacted.
If we redacted anybody's names, that's going to get the conspiracy people are going to be like, who are they protecting? People can't be satisfied on this front. That's just what I return back
No,
to.
but people still want.
But I want to know more about
only,
Bannon and Chomsky.
This is a bipartisan committee working on releasing these files, right? So that therefore it's not just the people of one side of the aisle looking for this. So just release them, provide transparency, and let's just move forward. If Trump wants to get this over with, it's been literally the number.
We're doing it. It's
like
being
number
released,
2 or 3
being
topic
classified.
of his administration, and he wants to. There's still something to say about the access to elite political people that perhaps should not be repeated ever again. And so part of this is also trying to figure out how to avoid anybody ever doing anything similar to this, because there was unprecedented access to a ton of people that we're seeing that Epstein, and the question always goes back to, who was this man? What connections did he have that maybe we don't fully understand that were political, specifically in our arena as we talk about it, less about the entertainment world where we know people might have been doing egregious stuff or schmoozing with each other. It's when you enter the political arena, how do you get so close to all these people, and who's going to be to blame for a lot of why he was able to evade the law for so long?
The connection, though, again, to return to Bannon and Chomsky getting along and being friends, is kind of interesting ideologically, because I would say that they're not actually as dissimilar as maybe they might seem. Bannon, for all his, he's a right-wing conservative political media figure, his economic views, his class-based view of the world is actually very left-wing and very Marxist. He is, an economic populist. He has like a Marxist view of class struggle, which is right in line with Noam Chomsky. So they probably got together and, talked about.
They have more. Like Mamdani and Trump. They got together and realized they have more in common than differences.
They're both socialists. You're all socialists. All 4 of those people are socialists. They all want higher taxes. They all want more regulation. They all want to take more money out of reach into your little pocketbook.
I actually just think that more politicians might go have a drink after the lights go off. Like, let's say it was a TV show, and go have a drink than we actually acknowledge. And so what happens is that the American public gets even more riled up about these issues at home, where they're screaming, not talking to family. And then you see
Steve need another drink.
No, and then you see President Barack Obama sitting next to President Trump, and you're like, well, what could possibly be funny? Yeah. You guys should hate each other. And they're like, no, they know how to be
each other at all.
So that's what I'm saying.
Game recognizes game.
I don't know if I think maybe Obama was just being respectful and laughing at a bad joke or something, but who knows? We never got the story there. But the point is, we take it way more seriously than these politicians do, and that probably should stop, because the political temperature is not being it's rising with these politicians and people who are politics adjacent, but then the actions that are being taken by Americans and people that are disassociating with their families or going to the furthest extent and committing some of these egregious acts that we blame on politics, these are all remnants of some of this conversation that needs to go away about how people are so different and can't have anything, when really you guys want the same things. You want your family to be successful. You want to try to figure out this American dream, right? Probably want some health care in there, like MTG.
Steve Bannon and Noam Chomsky want the same thing.
They might want the same thing.
Well, right now what they probably both want is less attention from the national media, given their Epstein association.